Welcome to the On the Move podcast.
But he's a good buck.
Speechless.
I'm tickled. I am tickled. I can't believe it.
This was just awesome.
Rooster!
This is what it's about.
Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of On the Move presented by Move Outdoors. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Tyler and Ryan, and we're going to be talking about the recently concluded Pennsylvania rifle season. It's the time of year that everybody is excited about. Gun seasons across the country are either opening up or shutting down. The bulk of deer season is behind us at this point, which is kind of sad for a lot of reasons. But hopefully everybody listening to this has found success and wants to relive the glory days of the last 2 weeks or however long it's been for rifle season. So without any further time wastage, I'll go ahead and ask our typical question to start the podcast, which is, what have you guys done the last little bit in the outdoors since our last recording? And Ryan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so like Zach said, it's been a little while, but we wrapped up our archery season here in Pennsylvania. I passed on a couple bucks that I'm sure that I should have shot, but I'm lucky enough to have quite a few different properties that I have access to, so I'm a little more picky than Zach would like me to be during archery season. But yeah, we wrapped up our archery season. I prepared for rifle season, got some stands shifted around and a blind set up for my grandfather. He hunted again this year, and yeah, just kind of checked some cameras, reset everything for rifle season, and got ready to go.
For the record, I don't mind that you pass on bucks. It's just that you pass on nice bucks in archery season and then shoot the first legal buck that walks by in rifle season. And that confuses me.
Yeah. Well, archery is for the wall, and rifle is for the
freezer.
And people could say, well, you could shoot does. Yeah, but it's more fun to fill my buck tag. So
can't argue that. Filling a buck tag is always more fun than filling a doe tag. Tyler, what about you?
Like Ryan said, we finished up archery season. In terms of chances, my chances dwindled as the season went on. Just got tangled up in life as I usually do. We got the guns out of the cabinet for the first time in a while. Took them to the range. Both of them within 3 shots were exactly where we wanted them. So we normally get ready to go up to my grandfather's mountain house in the Poconos for opening day, but this year my brother was sick, so worked on scouting, e-scouting, looking at properties we normally hunted around the area here where we're from. So, had to quick make a change to the game plan, but tried to prepare as best as possible for that.
And for myself, as Ryan had said, it's been a while since we recorded. I've gone to South Dakota on a pheasant hunt. That was a good time. And then came back from South Dakota, filled my Iowa buck tag, which that video will be up on the YouTube channel here sooner or later. I'm making headway on the videos, but not as fast as I'd like. As Tyler said, life just kind of gets in the way sometimes, unfortunately. But we're working on it, and it'll be up, I promise. And since then, I really didn't have any deer tags left here in Iowa. I had one doe tag for a county an hour north of me that I wasn't really too interested in filling. And now I've got a DMZ hunt, a deer management zone hunt going on. It's technically second shotgun season right now in Iowa as we're recording this, but in the DMZ hunt, it's archery only. And the rules and the seasons are different. So I can go out to that DMZ hunt and basically hunt a county park, antlerless only, for this year, if I'm able to get 3 does this year, I earn an either sex tag for next fall. So my goal is to shoot 3 does. I have until January 10th to fill that. So hopefully I can get that done. I've come close the last couple nights. It's just not quite worked out. One of the stipulations is you're only allowed to shoot 20 yards when you're in this DMZ hunt. And unfortunately, I just keep having does at like 30 to 40 yards, which is well within my comfortable killing range, but I don't want to shoot 30 to 40 yards because I risk getting kicked off the hunt, and I don't want to get kicked off the hunt. So I'm just going to wait it out and keep making small adjustments, and hopefully I'll get within 20 yards of one here shortly. But that's what I've really been up to the last month since we've talked. It's been a minute, but what we really, like I said before, what we want to talk about today is rifle season. I got to say, now that I'm not a Pennsylvania resident, I was seeing you guys post rifle videos and pictures and just Facebook of all the Pennsylvania hunting pages that I'm still in. And man, I think next year I'm taking a week off after Thanksgiving and gonna hunt that first week of rifle season. I didn't think I'd miss it this much, but man, I miss it. And it's just, I didn't expect that. Now, Ryan, I know you kind of have a camp atmosphere that you get to look forward to every year, and it's a big family thing. Do you have that that full build up to it? Like, you feel it coming, that weather starts changing. I know you like rifle season, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to rifle season more than archery season. It just feels right. The weather's colder. I've got a couple family members in Delaware that always come up to hunt rifle season, so it feels good to get like the whole family out together. Mostly I'm the only one that hunts archery, so I don't really get to hunt with my family as much during that season. My dad hunts occasionally with a crossbow, and my uncle just got a crossbow that he's getting into since he has some more time now that he's retired. But archery isn't as much of the family atmosphere for me, so I look forward to rifle season for sure. So I usually, and for the last 15 years, I've hunted opening day at least the morning with my dad. My grandfather on my dad's side, although he hasn't hunted the last couple years, and my uncle on my dad's side has started coming with us probably the last 7 or 8 years or so. But we all go up to a family farm, get ready for opening day, and we got our paths, do our tree stands, traditional stands that have produced since the 80s for my dad. I mean, he's shot over 20 bucks on that farm. Now, quite a few of them obviously before antler restrictions, but he's got a pretty good run since antler restrictions as well. But yeah, so it's a good family atmosphere around home. And then a couple years ago, I was fortunate enough to join a camp that a couple of my family members had been members for probably 40 years or so, since the late 70s, I think, was when one of my great uncles joined. So I was able to get into that about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's a really fun atmosphere too. I usually head up there on Monday of rifle season now that it starts on a Saturday. And I hunt up there for at least 3 days. This year I was fortunate enough to have the time off. I hunted 4 days up there. And that's the full old-fashioned camp experience. I mean, we've got hot breakfast at 5:30 in the morning, coffee, donuts, pack your lunch for the day, and get out in the woods with 15, 20 guys, and we're doing drives all day long on the mountain. So it's a really good experience. The guys that we consider the hunt captains up there that kind of organize the drives, they always do a great job of finding places for the older members, people that can't get around the mountain too well. They always find a place for all the older guys to hunt. So hopefully in 50 years, when I'm in that position, it's still going on and someone's finding a spot for me to hunt. But I was up there this year, like I said, Monday through Thursday for 4 days. And I was fortunate enough to harvest an 8-point buck on Monday morning and a nice doe on Thursday afternoon. So I was able to fill 2 tags up there, and both with my great uncle's guns, and who passed away about 2 years ago now. So that meant a lot to harvest 2 deer at that camp with the guns from my great uncle, who basically got me involved in that camp. So it was a good rifle season overall. And I hunted around here too with my family. My uncle was fortunate enough to get a doe. My dad had a lot of opportunities, a lot of illegal bucks, especially on the last day, that just couldn't get that brow point on them to make them legal. But we had a good season, saw a lot of deer like we always do, and got my grandfather out. He was 93 in October, and he was able to see some deer. He saw a couple illegal bucks that he was raring to go. But maybe one of these years before he passes, they'll allow seniors to shoot bucks without antler restrictions. I know they've been talking about it for years, but it hasn't really gained any traction. But personally, I wouldn't mind if anybody over the age of 65 or 70 wanted to shoot whatever they want, because if they're still in the woods, to me, I don't have a problem with it. But
Yeah, no, I
we'll
totally
see where
agree.
that goes.
It kind of blows my mind, actually. I honestly thought that for a long time, I thought that seniors could ignore antler restrictions. It was just a couple of years ago I saw some arguments on Facebook about it, and I was like, I thought seniors could ignore it. You know, I'm 40 years from being a senior, so I wasn't concerned with it and didn't really care about it. But I was just like, well, that makes sense. Seniors should be, they should be exempt from antler restrictions. Juniors and seniors and active military. Yeah.
I believe now it's active military and disabled veterans.
Yeah.
In addition to junior hunters.
I know disabled in Pennsylvania can ignore antler restrictions.
Yeah, I don't know what the disabled like laws really are, because like my grandfather uses a disabled parking permit, but he's by no means disabled.
I'm sure the standards are higher than that.
Yeah.
Another thing I've never actually looked into. I'm sure the book explains it well, and
we don't want to take advantage of a loophole.
No,
just for a deer. So
no. So, and I want to circle back to some of the things you mentioned later. But Tyler being an adult onset hunter, I guess is the cool popular kids term, or the pop culture term, whatever you want to say. I know you got your first buck with the rifle. I think you got your first. Did you get your first deer with the crossbow?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay. But I mean, still, your first 2 bucks I know came with the rifle, because I was hunting with you when you got them. One of them was on my birthday after I gave you that stand, which is really cool. Actually, I joke about it, but I'm not upset about it at all. That was one of the coolest things ever. But what have you done in rifle season the last couple of years, moving away from Penn State, where we started hunting, and some of the property that you had access to up there?
I can tell you exactly what I've been doing. Struggling. State College is a amazing area to go hunting if you're a hunter. The amount of access to land out there compared to how many people actually are hunting those areas, I think is tenfold versus what I have in my local area, same area Zach grew up in. Areas that we hunt around here get hit very hard.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're constantly dealing with pressure here. The last day of rifle that I got out, we went to areas that we were consistently seeing deer. In archery season, they were never in range, but we knew that they were supposedly going through there. And come rifle season, not a peep, nothing. No, there was no shots in the like 6 hours we were in the woods. There was nothing there. It just gets stomped as soon as small game happens, that plot gets heavy, and then rifle comes and it just gets overwhelmed. It's not big enough. Archery season, the amount of pressure I see in that area is actually reasonable. I
Mhm.
think that's why we were having close encounters in archery season because it doesn't get hit hard enough in archery. But as soon as small game hits, it's a war zone.
Yep.
So it's been quite a period of struggle here. Out of school, surprisingly, I had more time to hunt. However, that works. Um,
Yeah.
so
If you figure that out, let
so
me know. 'Cause I'd love to know how I had more free time then.
yeah, so that was also nice. I mean, we could go hell if we had a class that ended at 1 o'clock and we wanted to go hunting, we were good. Now you work till 5 o'clock, it's dark, so your day's done.
Yep.
But no, out there we had good access to private land. We had plentiful access to public land. So moving back home and having to find my way around this area because I didn't grow up hunting this area. I grew up in this area, but I didn't grow up hunting this area. Has been a little bit of a curve to get around.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough once rifle season comes in. I mean, I think I've told you before, there's a reason my family doesn't hunt that local patch in rifle season and we drive about 45 minutes north.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a word that starts with P and ends with Resher.
yeah. That's what we typically will go up to Poconos for opening day, just because up there you run into a similar scenario as we did in State College, where there's a lot more land. So therefore, the amount of hunters per acre or per mile, we would say, drops significantly up there. So that's why we typically go up there. Not that we have increased our success rate, but I might see 5 cars in the parking lot all day where I saw 5 guys walking in at this patch.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they all beat you to the parking lot despite you being there an hour and a half before daylight.
Yeah. Yeah, someone's always earlier than you. I'll remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that out the hard way many a times. Many a times. So first, I guess I do want to dip into that topic of pressure, particularly with you, Tyler, because Ryan
Mm.
Having for lack of better terms, the luxury of being able to hunt private land, you haven't had to deal with that public land rifle season pressure as much in Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm sure you still deal with it a little bit because I know some of those private properties you have access to back up to public. But I want to start asking you, Tyler, what do you do in those situations where you see 5 other guys walking in or you get set up and somebody walks in on you? I mean, how are you kind of responding and reacting to the pressure?
So I'm pretty anal about going into the woods and disturbing people's hunts. That's something I think all hunters should be cognizant about. So if you want to get in there at 5:30 in the morning, do whatever you got to do to get in the woods, make as much noise as you got to make, whatever. I mean, you got to get into your spot. But you want to show up at, say, shooting time, 20, 30 minutes after shooting time. Be cognizant of your fellow hunters. You're all trying to harvest something. So you disturbing my hunt is probably going to disturb your hunt. So when I say I'm running late, I had car troubles in the morning or something like that. I show up at the lot. There's 5 trucks there. I'm definitely sneaking in, first off, because I want to obviously preserve my hunt because I made it to the spot late. And B, I don't want to disturb someone else's hunt because they were there on time. So in those congested areas, definitely sneak in. If I'm the guy in the woods already in the morning, if it's still dark out, you would try to give me, a friendly flash like, hey, I'm here. In archery season, if you're 50 yards away from me, so be it. Typically in the woods that we're hunting here, I'm not gonna be able to shoot to that spot that you're sitting at probably. But in rifle season, if I can see you, we're probably sitting too close.
Yeah.
Again, there's some factors to that. I mean, I could see you and I could not even have a shot in your direction. So, but I've had people, last year we had a huge issue. We got in, I hiked in at like 4 in the morning for like a 6:15 shooting time. Hiked halfway up a mountain. We were sitting in there way like probably an hour before shooting light, and 20-30 minutes after shooting light started, some guys hiked down from apparently another access that I didn't know about that didn't take an hour to hike into, besides the point. But they used this access to gain higher ground than us, and they literally sat maybe 50 yards to my right, and then another guy went and sat out of my sight, but just on the other side of the hill. In that scenario, did he ruin the hunt? I don't know. We sat there. I didn't instantly call the hunt. I mean, what's the point in calling the hunt right then and there? If they're gonna ruin the hunt, at least feel it out for a little bit.
Yeah.
But in that case, I, being a gentleman, walked out as quietly as possible. No, I mean, I didn't yell at them because I mean it's public land. We all got the right to be there.
But it's still
But
frustrating. Like they
it
knew
is
what they
super
were doing.
yeah, we were in their spot. You could clearly see it. I watched them come in because I thought it was a deer. So I'm turning my head looking,
Yep.
and all of a sudden a dude pops out behind a tree. He's like, "Shit!" So clearly we were in their spot, and they weren't going to let us being in their spot ruin them from sitting that spot. So unfortunately, that's where we run into in public land. In PA, obviously, with the amount of hunters we have, it's bound to happen now or then.
Yeah.
But I definitely voiced my displeasure by killing a few twigs on the way out.
With the gun or with your feet?
With my feet. With my feet. I made to just make sure to dispatch all the twigs in the area. I was like, made it my way out of the spot.
There was no
Whether or
sneaking
not
on the way out.
Yeah, no, whether or not that was the right decision, I couldn't tell you, but that's how I felt at the moment, so I made sure they knew. But it's tough to manage that. I mean, like I said, they were late. They
Mhm.
snuck in maybe. I mean, at a certain point, if there's no rain and the ground's crunchy, you can do little to no sneaking. I mean, it's hard to sneak in that situation.
Yep.
But if I see somebody in my spot, it happened to me this day early, this first day of archery in 5C, we get early archery. I hiked in over an hour early, and there was a dude with a flashlight at my spot. So you know what I did? I sat somewhere else.
Yeah.
I was dead set on that was a honey hole, but I was like, you know what? Fair is fair. He beat me to it. I mean, I did all I could in my mind to get there when I thought I should be there, and he beat me to it. So I courteously sat like 75 yards away, whatever. Public land, you beat me to it, you got it. But
Yep.
If you're gonna be late or you're gonna hunt a very crowded area, we need to be sportsmen here. We're all trying to get a deer while we're out there. Why ruin somebody else's hunt?
Yep.
So like I said, it's hard to manage, but you guys got to do everything in your power to make sure that you're being a sportsman to those other hunters, and you can make a new plan on the fly. I mean, you can find a new spot and you might shoot something. You never know.
Yep.
But
sometimes
tis Pennsylvania rifle season.
sometimes it works out when people are in your spot or people push you out of your spot. Because I do the same thing you do. If I'm set up and somebody has the lack of courtesy to set up in like clear view of me, even though I have every right to that spot, clearly they feel that they're entitled to it. So generally I move then, because I'm like, if you're going to sit there and compromise both of our shooting abilities, I'm just going to move, because I immediately don't trust that you're not going to take a shot that you shouldn't, or try and steal a deer out from under me. Like if one comes up between us or something, really neither of us should shoot in that situation, but I don't have enough faith in people, I guess, is my answer there.
Yeah. It's hard to have that trust with just the way things are nowadays, it seems. with the
Yeah.
lack of concern for other hunters and general humanity, it seems.
Not to take it on too much of a tangent, but I did see a post on Facebook this year where a guy was asking about what he should do about the fact that someone else has a ground blind in the middle of an access trail on a patch of game lands.
Yeah.
And I made the comment on the post. I was like, if he's dumb enough to put that ground blind in the middle of an access trail, he has lost all right to complain about people walking past him. Like,
Yeah.
just go past him, go to wherever you want to go. I'm sorry, but if you're going to put a ground blind 200 yards from the parking lot in the middle of the access trail, you're going to see people, and you kind of
Yeah.
forfeited the right to be mad about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's certain situations where you can't feel bad for somebody for the decisions they made incorrectly.
Yeah. Yep. On the flip side of things here, though, Ryan, what's it like not dealing with pressure?
Well, I wouldn't say I don't deal with pressure. I just don't deal with that kind of pressure. There's,
So what kind of pressures do you deal with then on private land?
I mean, other than my hunting camp, which is a very large acreage, the farms that I do hunt are not too big. I mean, we don't keep our own deer all the time. I mean, with the deer traveling around, we have people that hunt the borders, whether it be public or the other farms. We also hunt some of the borders, so there's always kind of a give and take between people that have access to private land on how close you want to be to each person's border. If two people are hunting the same border facing a different way, well, maybe you guys want to talk about that, because if you're cutting deer off for somebody, you kind of, I mean, I've had that conversation with some of the guys that hunt a neighboring farm, and it's always a good one because usually we're hunting private land. We know where the deer are coming, who wants them, and if somebody's hunting that edge that day, then we'll go somewhere else. But it's it's usually a more courteous exchange than what you would run into on public land with people just kind of trouncing around, coming in late, that, et cetera, like that. So, as far as pressure on the deer per se, there is a lot of pressure during archery season in the neighboring properties, whether they be public or private, to where I hunt. I know that for sure. I know multiple bucks are taken on the public and the private. So it does affect some deer movement. Like I said, we're not having hundreds or thousands of acres here on the farms that I hunt around here. So the deer are traveling, the deer are getting pressured the same when they're traveling through public and private lands. But I want to go back to kind of like the hunter courtesy thing, where if you see somebody, you should not be set up within sight of them. My hunting camp has 40 members. I guarantee, now we have a lot of land, I'll give it that, but I guarantee you that if one of those 40 members has a stand within sight of another person's stand that they are hunting that day, they won't be at that stand. So not everybody's best friends at my hunting camp. Not everybody sees each other more than once a year, but it's a general courtesy thing and a safety thing for that matter. Like Zach said, if a deer comes between you and someone else on public land, I'm fortunate enough to know the people at my camp and trust them somewhat.
Yeah.
You don't know these people. You don't know what laws they're following. You don't know what gun they have. You don't know what their intent is.
Yep.
Are they there to shoot a buck, a doe? Are they going to shoot anything they see? Are they breaking the law? Are they going to shoot towards you? You don't know what you're going to get yourself into. And in Tyler or Zach, in your case, when you guys used to walk 1-2 miles back in, I mean, it can potentially be a dangerous situation, no matter, depending on who you run into.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's just like we said, it's a lack of courtesy. You should at a minimum, be, I would say, 100 yards away from anybody with a rifle.
Yeah,
If you have
Adam,
to be 150 yards from a building, even if you're facing away from it, you
Yeah.
should at least be 100 yards from the closest other hunter, unless you're
unless
hunting.
that's
Unless you're
someone
hunting
you
together.
know. Yeah,
If
Yeah.
you're hunting together with somebody, so like if Tyler's hunting with his brother and they want to say 50 yards apart and cover two different areas, that's fine. But if you walk in on somebody on public land and choose to sit in front of them 50 yards, then you don't have respect for that person. You don't have respect for fair chase, because you're ruining somebody's day. You're probably ruining your chances, and you're creating a dangerous situation. So that's just my take on that aspect. And
No, I agree.
thankfully I don't have to deal with it as much. Sometimes
Mhm.
I deal with it during turkey season, but that's in much smaller numbers than rifle season for deer. So
In the vein though of pressure on your private properties, because you do have access to a couple properties that back up to public, I'm curious if you've ever had any issues with trespassing, particularly in rifle season.
surprisingly, we have not. There has been occasions where people have tracked a deer during archery season, but they were legitimate track jobs. They weren't just coming through to drive or coming through to hunt.
Yep.
So really, I have to say, even the people that hunt the lines, they know where the lines are.
That's good. That's good.
So I haven't run into an issue while I was there. And the tracking jobs have been when my other family members are there. I haven't actually been on one, but if it's a tracking situation, we're always happy to help.
Yeah.
I know some landowners that maybe don't hunt, or even some that maybe do, will say no access, whatever. But if you shoot a deer, I'll help you look for it. That's my opinion.
I really hope to own land one day, and that's basically going to be my approach when I own property. Is you're not going to come onto my property and hunt without permission, but if you shoot a deer on a neighboring property, be that public, private, whatever, and it runs onto my property, you're more than welcome to track it, but I'm going to be there to help you.
Right. Yeah. I'd like to see what you shot anyway.
Yeah, like I'm curious what you shot to begin with. Like nice buck, little buck, doe, and I'll help you get it off my property. I don't care. I'll help you drag it down to the driveway, and you can go get your truck and come pick it up in the driveway for all I care.
Now, I don't own personally any of the land, obviously, that I hunt on, but I do know some of the neighbors that are private around it, and I haven't run into an issue with anybody. So it's a pretty good relationship.
It's good.
That everybody kind of respects the boundaries, knows where the boundaries are, and knows if they have to go get a deer, they can get one. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, covering that little aspect of it, I do want to jump into how each of your rifle seasons actually went. And Tyler, I know your story is a little shorter just because you weren't able to get out as much. So I'll ask you specifically first. I mean, what were the highlights and the lowlights of your rifle season this year?
Well, this season, we didn't get to go up to, like I had mentioned earlier, our normal spot up in the Poconos. I was excited to get up there because I had a couple spots that I think could have been pretty productive up there. Pressure's a little less, and the pressure that does exist, I don't think reaches as far in as I was wanting to hike. So if any pressure was on, the border, it would have pushed it to the center of the public land where I was hoping to sit. So that was unfortunate this year. We'll reevaluate that next year. I got a spot or two up there I want to check out in archery. I got a couple trees I picked out last year that I want to climb. So we'll see about that next year. But this year, had Audible. Like I said, opening day, spent that down here. My older brother was pretty sick. So he he couldn't get up early the first day. So like I was speaking to Curtis earlier, he said he couldn't drag himself out at 3-4 in the morning, like we normally would plan to go out. So he was awake by 9 o'clock, but typically some people are pushing it to 11, 12 o'clock. So I said, let's hop in at 12 o'clock during the quote unquote shift change. Everyone's leaving. Let's jump in and sit the rest of the day. So we tried that. We went up to the property that I had issues with encroachment before, but it's relatively big. We hiked up the mountain a good amount. Probably took us about an hour to get there. We were probably about halfway up the mountain. It's a pretty big mountain if you hike from the base where we park.
Oh, yeah.
So we made it pretty far up there. We set up probably about 30 yards apart. He was able to look probably about 200 degrees worth of shooting. I had probably about 150 degrees worth of shooting. So we both had good shooting. None of it overlapped. We sat on two opposite sides of this incline. It was relatively quiet. About, I want to say, an hour or two into the hunt, we heard some shots that seemed really close. I'd seen one of the guys I knew from high school in the parking lot, so I texted him, "Hey, did you shoot?" He said, "No, actually, we left already," because ironically, he had people sit next to him, so he called it and went to the local clubland. So that's pretty ironic.
I wonder if it was the same guy.
Coincidentally, I believe it was the people that ended up shooting this deer. When we finished our hunt for the day, we hiked down, and we have to, the way this property is laid out, it's public, but it surrounds the local county's water facility. So there's this huge stretch of private in the middle. So you can hike down to the power line, which is still on public land, and then you have to hike along the private so you get back onto the corridor that takes you down to the base where the parking lot is. So eventually we ran into the blood trail of what ended up being this deer that got shot. And I followed that because I was like, oh, it's probably the deer that got shot, but maybe something's wounded. So we followed that to the parking lot, and it ended up being a dead deer that was laying there. And we were talking to the guy, and we were explaining to where we had sat and then where he had sat. And this doe was actually shot probably not even 75 yards away from us.
Really?
So had that guy not been there, they were working their way up to us. Because the buddy who I texted said he kicked deer up and they were running in the direction. Because I sent him a ping of where we sat. He said they were probably working their way up to you, but I think it's the one that guy shot at. So we were in a good spot, really. We got cut off. I mean, we were plenty far apart, but
yep.
It didn't work out that day. That Sunday, we ended up going, I believe, back to that same property. That one we kind of just walked around, because we were the one of the guys who was with that party who shot the deer. He explained to me what I've kind of been experiencing on the property is you shoot what you see, because this property is not very full of deer. Like, there has to be deer covering this property, but they're hiding. They're invisible. I don't know, but he said you shoot what you see. So I just said, you know what, let's just walk. I mean, you could push something. If you push something up, yeah, you kick something up, you can shoot it within 200 yards or better. So let's just see what we do. We ended up seeing anything, but that was it for that week. I don't get to hunt during the week. I work dark to dark every day, so I don't get out during rifle season during the week, unfortunately. That next weekend, he was still sick. He said he definitely couldn't do inclines. He said the incline kind of kicked his ass the previous week, because he had some kind of respiratory virus.
COVID?
No, no, he was tested for that. I don't know what it ended up being, just some kind of virus or bacterial respiratory infection of some sort.
Hmm.
Um, so we ended up going back to a property that we were familiar with and we knew. We had run into deer, and the same property we ran into the bear on. It's again a very small patch, and
Mhm,
again it's very well pressured in rifle season.
mhm.
And we found a bunch of buck sign in archery season that ended up turning into an opportunity that he almost shot a nice 8 point. So I was like, you know what, let's go back in there. It's pretty well pressured, but this spot is clearly a comfort spot for them. They're clearly spending a lot of time here. There's rubs, there's trails everywhere. It's pretty tight quarters. So we were crawling or on our knees, getting in between trees and brushes at some point. So I said, let's try here. Um, we we went in at noon again, because I was if he couldn't get up in the morning, I said we'll sit noon to dark, because again, it seems like to be a little bit of a lull in terms of hunters in the woods around lunchtime. So
Yeah, and plus
we get
you can be set up when they come back in, and maybe they'll get
yeah,
something to you.
yeah, exactly. There's some CRP that I spotlight during the summer, and they were always in the CRP at night. So depending where those deer were on their way up to the CRP, somebody coming in could have pushed them very well back to us. So I figured, let's try there. We have some history here. Um, we get to the parking lot, and an older gentleman pulled in next to us, and he was clearly rushing to get into the woods before us. But thankfully, we were able to beat him out of the truck. Um, but we snuck in. I didn't see any other cars, but there's access from like 3 different roads to this property.
Yeah.
So you don't know if somebody used the lower road and hiked up to where we were going to sit. So we snuck in, and plus, again, you're being courteous to yourself, to the other hunters, but you're also increasing your possibilities of seeing a deer on your way in. What's better than seeing a deer on the way in and shooting and dragging back out and calling it a day?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so we snuck in, and we're walking down the area between. There's a wood patch to our left and a wood patch on our right, and we're walking through tall grass. And in archery season, we had seen deer crossing here at some points of the day, so we snuck along here, just making sure we didn't see anything. And we a lot of us use OnX, obviously. So I had my relative spot that we sat when we saw the buck in archery season. So we hiked that until I found an opening that led into the pinch point that I had picked out. We hike in again. There's buck rubs everywhere. At this point, I didn't take a picture of every single one, so maybe none of them are fresh. Maybe they're not even in that area anymore. But again, it's sign at least that there's something in the area. We followed some deer trails down, and I got to the point, and I stood exactly where that buck was standing when we saw him at archery.
Mm.
And I noticed there was like 2 or 3 trails that led there, and one that he followed into the main part of the public land was right there. So originally I said, you know what, sit here, and then I hiked 40, 50 yards to our right,
Mm.
more into the bowl, and I got to the spot and I sat there. I'm like, actually, I can see most of the stuff that he could see over there. Plus, I could see another hillside. So I was like, I like waved my orange hat, like to signal him to come over, and I had him sit there. And then I actually hiked out to the top of the bowl where we sat the first day of archery, and because I could see another hillside, and then I could see down into the bowl.
Mhm.
Um, that was really quiet. It was probably 30 minutes before um, our final shooting time, and he texts me. He's like, "You see anything?" I was like, "No." You know what? Why don't you push to me, and then when we meet here, we'll sneak out because like I said, they make their way to the CRP, so maybe we could cut something off of it before it gets to it.
Yep.
And I text him, come up, and he's like, "Okay," and I'm probably 70 yards to his right. I'm sitting there waiting for him, waiting for him, waiting for him. We're obviously wearing orange. I never see him. Something heavy walks in through the brush past me. I'm like, how this dude miss me? I'm wearing orange. I text him, hey, where are you? He's like, I don't know, I don't see you. And I started whistling. I'm like, do you hear my whistle? No. I'm like, well, that's weird. You just walked right by me. So I text him. I'm like, stay where you are. I'm gonna walk down onto the trail. I walk down to the trail, and I see him still probably feeling. He probably walked 20 yards. I'm like, what? Something has walked by me. I never saw it. I never
probably a
saw it.
deer
So
then.
I'm like, yeah, I was like, son of a gun. Like I said, nothing ever materialized, but I'm like, something heavy just walked by me, but I never saw it.
Yep, probably a deer
Yeah.
sneaking by.
Yeah. So I eventually I caught up with him and we snuck out to the parking lot. Never saw anything. Uh but like I said, at least I assume I heard a deer. Like I said, it was heavy. No offense to my brother, but he's probably similar weight to a deer. Um, it wasn't a squirrel, is what I mean to say. Um, but like I said, we made our way out to the truck and didn't end up seeing anything. That was, I think, the last time I was able to make it out. I think the following, because that was the next. We only got one Sunday. I don't understand PA's Sunday hunting is another topic for another day. I think we probably discussed it already. We get the
Yeah,
first weekend Sunday, and then we don't get the last weekend Sunday. It's kind of irritating.
Yeah, that's a topic we could spend an hour talking about. So
Yeah, because if you're like every average Joe, most likely Monday through Friday, you're not able to hunt unless you specifically take time off work.
Yep.
So you get Saturday, Sunday, first weekend, Saturday.
yep, you get
So
4 days basically a rifle season. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
why
So
I do like that they changed the opening day to Saturday and gave us that Sunday instead of making it Monday through Saturday and then Monday through Saturday because you can't hunt that. You can't hunt the Sunday then, which is
yeah, so
Yeah.
you get 2 days really.
yeah, you'd get 2 days, and that's it.
Yeah, because I thought they were expanding them this year, but I was wrong. Maybe sometime in the future we'll get an expansion. I guess we should be happy we get any Sundays, but
They keep introducing the bills, but then the bills just don't go anywhere. It's frustrating.
yeah.
But
Yeah, to me, like it seems like whoever's holding it up it's like splitting hairs. What's the difference between a few Sundays and every Sunday?
just open them all up. Open them all up.
I don't want to be too controversial here, but I don't want to hear about hikers. Public land is funded by license and hunting related gear sales. I don't want to hear about hikers. I don't care about the hikers.
I don't want to hear
and their
about
opinion
hikers.
on our hunting days.
And I don't want to hear about farmers saying, well, I don't want people hunting my property 7 days a week. Okay.
Don't allow it.
You own the property. Tell them they can't hunt 1 day a week.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't like anyway, yeah. We'll move past that. Otherwise, we're gonna go on a massive tangent here. Ryan, you said you shot 2 deer in rifle season.
I did.
Now I know you didn't do too good the first 2 days hunting local around on your private properties there. So I'm just gonna say let's go ahead and skip that in the effort of time here. And why don't you take us into your camp atmosphere and how you did up at camp, because that was kind of the highlight of your rifle season there.
Yeah, so I got to my camp on Sunday night after hunting back home first 2 days with not much success. Got up Monday morning. My plan was to go to a spot that I had scouted in September and then again in early November. There's another camp member that hunts that spot every year in rifle season, gets a buck every year, and sure enough, when I got to camp on Sunday night, he had shot a nice, pretty heavy 7-pointer from his spot on opening morning. So I decided I was gonna head up in that general area. It was about a 2-mile hike from my camp. So I set out around 5:30, my plan being that I was going to be on the trail on my way up the mountain as it got light so that I could still hunt my way into the spot and probably get there around 7:30 or so. And then I was going to sit the remainder of the day and kind of still hunt my way out probably around 4:30. That was the plan. So a little bit of wind, a little bit of almost not complete sleet, but not also complete snow, kind of a mix of something coming down. So it was beneficial for still hunting that day. And this actually ended up being the second buck I've killed in the last 4 years that I used the wind and the noise that it creates to my advantage to get within range. So long story short, I waited till about 6:30 where legal shooting light was, and I started working my way up the ridge to the spot that I was going to get to, and got about 3/4 of the way up the ridge and looked up above me, and a buck was walking on the edge of the laurel, almost at the top of the hill, kind of coming across the ridge. I was still probably 100 or so yards, and it was relatively thick. So I was able to get probably another 20 yards or so as he was coming from my left, and he stopped broadside up above me on the hill, one shot with the 30-06, and he went straight down. So roughly 7:05, 7:02, I think was the technical time, but didn't even have to climb the rest of the way up to the top. And I had a nice 8-point buck down. So it's your typical Pennsylvania 8-pointer, probably
8 point.
about probably like 80-inch.
Okay.
Probably about 80-inch 8-point. He had a unique feature. He actually had a hole, and I can post the pictures to the page. He had a hole in the bottom of his main beam.
Like from velvet, or got shot at, or what?
It would have had to be in velvet because it was just on the underside of the main beam, just like a small puncture hole. But yeah, I'll definitely post a picture. I mean, any of our viewers and you guys can give your feedback on what you think caused it, but it had to have been something in velvet, whether it was a bug or parasite that ate a hole in the velvet, or if it was that he poked himself with a stick or with a fence, or perhaps with another buck's antler when he was still in velvet. I don't know what would cause that, but it's kind of a unique feature. And you have to look pretty hard to see it, but there is definitely a hole in the main beam. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it was shot with one of my great uncle's older guns, so it meant a lot. And it was my first buck at my hunting camp since I joined 4 or 5 years ago. I've gotten buck in the past years, but they've been around my home here. So
it just makes you wonder if, everything kind of happens for a reason, like people like to say, like, you've been a member of the camp now for a couple of years. You've been hunting up there pretty seriously for a couple of years in rifle season. You haven't been able to get a buck up there. And then you go up there with the gun of the deceased family member who got you into the camp. And within an hour, your first day hunting camp with that gun, you got your buck.
Yeah. And buck was just on his way back to bedding, and I caught him by luck still hunting up the ridge. I mean,
yep.
Whether it's luck or whatever you want to believe,
whatever you decide to call it,
there's something involved there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it just seems to always work that way. But
it does.
I was very, very fortunate. So I'd still had quite a bit of a drag back to camp. Luckily, about half of it was downhill, and then the remaining half was mostly flat. But it was still about a mile and a half back to camp. So I shot him around 7, like right after 7, got back to him at the parking lot around 10:30, 11. So
I wanted to ask you, if you had a do-over on that drag, would you have packed him out?
if I was where I was planning to be by the end of my still hunting in the morning, I was going to be about another half mile further and on top of a flat on a ridge.
Mhm.
I did have my Western pack with me and bags to pack out a deer, because my plan was to sit up there the whole day. And if I would have shot a deer at 3 o'clock in the afternoon where I was planning on being, I absolutely would have packed it out. But being that I shot it first thing in the morning and I could take my time, I decided that it wasn't necessary for me to do that.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
But
Okay.
that was my plan, just because of the sheer distance and the terrain of where I was headed. But luckily, I didn't even get to where I was headed.
Yeah, that is
Mhm.
nice. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of being at your camp for bear season, and there's almost no flat spots on that property.
No, there's not much flat.
You're either going up or you're going down.
There's creek beds, and then there's the tops of the ridges, and that's about the only flat areas.
Yep.
But actually, funny you brought up bear season. Somebody saw a bear on the last day on one of the drives. I wasn't up there, but I got a video sent to me of somebody. They drove a bear out. Of course, during bear season, we didn't drive any bear out, but that
And you
seems
didn't
to be-
drive any
seems
bear
to
out the
be-
first week of rifle either when you could have shot one.
No, actually, they changed it this year.
Oh,
The unit that my camp is in, they and quite a few other units. I think there were about half a dozen of them. They closed bear for the opening week of rifle season due to what they said. I believe they said in the book that there were less kind of complaints or like human bear interaction issues in those management units, so they actually did not have bear open during rifle season concurrent with deer.
not to take it on a tangent, but I did see an article today actually that Pennsylvania's bear harvest this year was the lowest it's been since 2007.
Well, I think the majority, I mean, you always have those people that drive the traditional bear drives in Pennsylvania during the rifle bear season, which only runs, well, it's technically 5 days now
Yeah,
because
it's 5 days now.
that's one of the Sundays that we can hunt. But
It used to be a
5
3.
days. Yeah, it's the 5 days before Thanksgiving. Usually people get together and make some drives on those Saturdays and Sundays, but a lot of the deer or a lot of the bear that get shot typically get shot during opening week of rifle season because there's
Mhm.
more guys in the woods, there's more driving going on, there's more pressure, the bears are moving around. So doesn't surprise me that the bear harvest was down, especially with some of the units in the center of the state being closed for that rifle season. So
Okay, that does make sense. Okay, so that first night then after you shot your buck, did you go back out hunting or did you just kind of hang out around camp, enjoy yourself?
I hung out for a while. I went back out. I had a trail camera in a different section of camp, so I still hunted my way in there around 3 o'clock, checked the camera, and then walked out around 4:30. If a doe would have presented a good shot, I would have taken it. I jumped a couple deer that ran away from me. I saw some tails, but wasn't really hunting seriously the rest of that day. Just kind of
Soaking it in.
enjoying it, relaxing, recovering from my drag. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday was all hardcore driving days. I was fortunate to have my buck tag, so I was driving on the majority of the hunts those days.
Yep.
And then Thursday, usually the first couple days of driving, we try to shoot buck only, just because if everybody's shooting doe, it tends to hold up the day because if you have to get 2 or 3 deer off the mountain, like Zach said, it's not flat at my camp. So if you have to get 2 to 3 deer off on every drive, you might only get two or 3 drives in the whole day instead of 4 or 5.
And there's plenty of road access that you guys have throughout the property, but even some of those road accesses, you're looking at 25 minutes to a half hour to get back from wherever you are back to camp to drop the deer off,
Right.
and then that same time frame to get back to the drives.
You can definitely spend half an hour on the back of a truck before you get back to the main road to get to camp with some of our road accesses for sure. So the first 2 days was buck only. We did shoot a couple dandy bucks off of our drives, and then Thursday they opened back up for doe. And Thursday afternoon I was able to get a nice doe on the last drive of the day on Thursday afternoon. So with another one of my grandfather or great uncle's old rifles. So
That's really cool.
yeah. So overall a good week. Got 2 of my tags filled. I still have tags for around here and 1 tag for up there for flintlock season. Not really in a rush to fill them just because of the elk meat and now 2 deer. But I would really like to, and Zach will be happy about this, I'd like to get a deer on camera with the flintlock.
Yes.
And I think it's definitely doable. I had it set up, I believe it was 2 winters ago, and my gun misfired
Like twice on a nice doe.
twice with the camera on.
Tell you what though, that video is it actually still does pretty good. I think there's a big push for flintlock content. People seem to like flintlock hunting videos, which is good. Because when I come home, I have a break from work here in Iowa from the 23rd through the 2nd, I think I have off. So I plan on coming home. I'll be home for Christmas. Flintlock starts the day after Christmas. We got to do some drives. I mean, I've already worked it out with my parents because I'm kind of the same way as you. The freezer's pretty full. I could squeeze 1 more deer in there, but I do still have a late muzzleloader tag here in Iowa. I'd really love to fill in a nice buck. Another nice buck, I should say. And so I already have it worked out with my parents that if I shoot something back home in Pennsylvania, I'll probably only take half of it, and the other half is going to stay with the parents. Or go to you, Tyler. Could go to you too, if you're interested.
And
That's the
Tyler,
special
whatever you
podcast, though.
Tyler, I do have 2 flintlocks. So
Buy a muzzleloader permit. Come with.
muzzleloader permit I think is like $10. So
Yeah,
I think I have it. I think I bought it already.
Oh, dude, come with.
yeah, I've got 2 flintlocks. They're cleaned and ready to go.
Because I bought it hoping I'd get my inline ready, but I never got my inline ready, so I think I have it.
As long as you don't take yourself too seriously, you'll have a great time.
Don't take it too seriously. If you misfire, who cares? It's fun.
And even
Yeah.
if you miss, it's probably because you flinched, and you're not going to think that you flinched, but you definitely flinched.
They're not called the flinch lock for no reason.
Yeah, it's just a good time. There's very little pressure anywhere you go.
Yep.
And it's just a good time to walk around in the woods.
Yep.
But side note, there's also some rabbit hunting and potentially some pheasant hunting that's going to be going on during that week after Christmas. So
Oh, there's no potentially. Winnie's getting out on some pheasants, and she's excited about it.
I've got one dog ready for hunting, and the other one is 5 months old, and he'll come along later this winter. So
But no, it sounds like you guys had a pretty good rifle season. Ryan, you especially filling a buck tag and a doe tag with your great uncle's gun on the camp property that he got you into, which is freaking awesome. And then Tyler, I mean, sounds like you guys learned a lot. Every year you hunt that property, you're just getting closer and closer to filling tags. and
Mhm.
I gotta think it's coming for you next year. I mean, I really do. So I want to be conscious of the listener's time here, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast. But I want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to plug we do have some merchandise available on our website, themoveoutdoors.com. And if you're listening to this on a podcasting platform that's not YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if you check out our YouTube channel, Move Outdoors, and our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram, Move Outdoors Official. And if you are on YouTube, don't forget to check out those social media platforms. And we've got some merchandise with the cool logo that you see behind me here, the Move Deer. We've got that available on our website, themoveoutdoors.com. But we really appreciate you guys listening. The best way you can support us is to keep listening. Leave a 5-star review down below. And let us know what you think of this podcast episode. And be sure to share your rifle season success with us. We want to thank you guys for listening one last time, and we'll catch you next time. Until then, you're on the move with Move Outdoors.